Yeah, these are definitely not tools that are just like specific to Zoomers, or I would say even like introduced by the Zoomer generation. Is just kind of like a placeholder for us to say like the modern chess tools, because like most players in history grew up maybe reading chess books or chess magazines, mostly playing games and analyzing with a physical board, not using computers, not using engines, just them and the board and their thoughts and their opponent's thoughts and the thoughts of their peers and their training partners. But yeah, now it seems like chess improvement is changing, and I think it's been changing for I feel like a few decades now, with like the start of ICC and Play Chess and Chess.com and Lee Chess, because now you can play millions of games, and I think we've already seen the generation of online players like Magnus and Hikaru both famously played like thousands and thousands of games online, in addition in Magnus's case to like reading a lot of books. So yeah, a lot to discuss here, because I think there are a lot of benefits to these new tools. There's also some drawbacks. But yeah, so should we start with this idea of playing? Like, can playing a lot of Blitz really lead to a ton of improvement?
Sure. I'll go first on that one. You mentioned Hikaru, and I think, to my mind, he was the first proof that for some people that can be enough to get really, really good. Now, I don't know exactly how good a Zoomer or anyone has to get for Jesse to say, okay, the tools that they used worked. I don't know if it's got to be 2750 or 2780 or 2820 or exactly where it is. But I mean, clearly Hikaru became, a 2700 plus super GM largely on the back of just churning out Blitz games and bullet games even. And he clearly learned from playing them. He clearly got better doing it, and he clearly got really good. So, I mean, that's one case that provides some pretty clear data. I personally believe different people learn in different ways. So just because it worked for Hikaru, there could be someone else for whom it doesn't work, who has a similar overall chess potential, but a different way of learning and a different way of like thinking about chess. And they could do the exact same thing that Hikaru did and not get as good, and a different plan would have worked for them. But for Hikaru, it worked. And I think for a lot of people, it can work.
So I want to jump in there, and definitely Hikaru was when he made it, not to the top 100, but to the top 10, I was kind of shocked. I was definitely shocked. But a really important footnote on this is Hikaru did grow up with a stepdad who is arguably, I would say his stepdad, Sunil Weermantree, is within one of the top coaches in the country.
Yeah.
And so he grew up with that chess culture in his house in like around the New York City area. And I think that's indispensable. I don't think he would have ever made it without that. So it's kind of like the story of him playing all that Blitz, making it with the Blitz. That's part of the story, but it's not all of it.
Certainly wasn't the only thing. Yeah, he did. My feeling on all this is that like these tools can come and go, but there are certain things that I think are very necessary to become a really good player, and one of them being playing a ton of chess over the board. And even if that's Blitz or like rapid tournaments, I think just the experience of playing hundreds and thousands of games OTB and really like being invested and very present for those games, I think this is a really important part of the development of many players. And it's one thing that I actually think is missing for a lot of adult improvers, because they didn't play chess when they were younger. They never had this opportunity to like go to a tournament and like just play chess 24/7 for 3 days in a row, or go to a chess camp and play chess for like 5 hours a day for 5 days. And now it's kind of a real struggle for a lot of players who want to play in tournaments, but of course now tournaments are less common because of COVID. It's harder to find someone to play in person with. So this is actually, I think, a real struggle for some folks to get that like OTB experience. But yeah, clearly lots of players do improve a lot, and it seems like they're not doing a whole lot outside of just playing a ton of Blitz and trying to learn from the games. But the players that do improve, that focus on that, to me, it feels like they are getting something out of the Blitz games. Either they're retaining a lot of info, or when they make a mistake, somehow they're able to kind of learn from that. Even if they're not super invested in like analyzing all their Blitz games and like trying to learn from it, clearly they're picking something up from that volume. But to David's point, I haven't seen it work for just everyone, and there's a ton of players out there who do play lots of Blitz and don't improve, right? So it's clearly not just about doing the thing, playing a ton of games. There has to be some kind of deeper connection made in the game, whether that's OTB or online. I think is not the most important thing, but yeah, somehow you have to like really engage with your moves, the ideas you're putting out, why they are or aren't working, and develop that growth.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, for example, that I'm an example of the opposite, like somebody who could play a lot of Blitz games and not really learn or improve much from them. You know, different people learn in different ways. I've played a ton of Blitz games. Probably like 80% of the people watching this or listening to this have played like, 10,000 Blitz games in their life or whatever. So some insane number. I don't know what it comes out to, but like when I was in high school, I played on ICC, all day. When I went to college, I would play Blitz until the sun came up on ICC. I didn't get any better, Maybe, it never really helped me.
Maybe not, but I mean, you are a really good player now. So that was part of your upbringing.
Well, I feel like my improvement didn't really come from that, though. Like, obviously, at various points in my life, I made improvement, but I've had phases when I did different things. So I have a sense of which, like, phases improved me and which ones didn't, right? Like, at one point, I spent a month with another player of my rating looking at king and pawn endings from Dvoretsky. And then we spent the next month looking at rook and pawn endings in Dvoretsky. And we did like 8 hours a day of it, plus like, physical workouts in between. And then occasionally looking at like some complete games. I got better from that. But like in college, just cranking Blitz at night, I didn't get better.
Yeah, and I'll say from my experience as a coach, and this is just anecdotal because I'm just one guy, but my experience as a coach is it hurts more than it helps, especially when it's binge worthy. Especially when it becomes binge worthy, that like the bad habits get ossified, they get ingrained, and then it's like we gotta like, the body needs to be stretched out and like put back into its proper form,
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to worry about, because when you play a lot of Blitz, you have certain reactions. Your opponent pins you with bishop to g5, and you're just playing h6 on autopilot every time, or you're breaking the pin. But there's nothing that you should be doing every single time in a chess position. So, yeah, it's like Blitz can definitely build on those bad habits. So you have to be very, very careful. I mean, with everything, I just feel like it's not black and white. Blitz can be helpful, but it's probably not helpful in the way that most people are engaging with Blitz. So I feel like that's always my main thought here.
I really believe some people just process it differently. Like, when we say, oh, if you binge, it's not as good or something. But like, if you look at Hikaru, I mean, he doesn't stop after every Blitz game and like think about it, right? I mean, he'll play 100 games in a row.
Yeah.
Which honestly, like, the guys, it's always been the question, I think, for everybody in the US chess community, especially before he made it, was like, okay, how good could Hikaru have been? If he hadn't had the bad habits that he did, how good he have gotten? And then it stunned us when he made top 10. It stunned everybody. I guarantee you, people out there might claim that they saw it coming. No one saw that coming, because it was just so surprising. And at that time, like the jump, he made it to 2,700, or just like like high 2,600s, and then the jump into the 2,700 thing was just like a shock, because he was plateaued in the high 2,600s for like around the late 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, this guy made it over 2,800 and was like competing with Kramnik and Anand, playing like positional games with them, right? So like, if he had done things differently, how much better he could have been or something. I mean, Not much. He pretty much made it to the top.
Yeah, like
Like 5 more rating points, maybe, or like a year sooner or 2 years sooner. I don't know. I mean, what he did, I think, pretty much worked for him. And I think Hikaru wanted to be really good. And if what he was doing hadn't been good for him, he would have probably changed. I mean, people sometimes get it wrong about themselves, for sure. But like, my guess is that what he was doing worked well for him, and that's why he did it. And that he was, you know, determined enough to get good that he was willing to do what it took. And if he had to stop playing Blitz to get better, he might have, but I don't think he needed to.
Yeah. Well, when it comes down to it, and I give my students pretty much the same advice. Like, if you want to play Blitz, that's fine, but treat it as something fun that you're doing, and not like, okay, this is how I'm gonna grind my chess and improve. Like, you want to play Blitz, enjoy, have some fun, but yeah, I think the deep think is where you're gonna get most improvement, I feel, for most people. Doesn't mean that Blitz is never useful. I feel like people always hear that and they're like, oh, so that means Blitz is worthless. It's definitely not worthless. It can be helpful, but I just think in like really specific cases.
Yeah, and I'll say, I just want to mention, because we're all dissing it from this old school perspective, but what really is great about Blitz is that, especially if you don't live in some big city, like I did when I was a kid, I played like the same 3 or 4 people again and again and again in my tiny little state. Once you get into the online world, you are suddenly able to play IMs and GMs and all these people, and they're throwing all kinds of different conceptual things at you that you at least have to react to in a competitive sense. So, like, that is something. There's no doubt that is worth something.
Yeah.
But it sounds like we have a kind of a consensus here, right? We have a consensus that no, Blitz isn't working. And we could be, you know, there might be somebody out there, maybe Chess Numbers could construct a statistical model in which you could actually test this kind of thing.
That's what we need.
Really
We
not
need
what I was trying to say,
long-ranging
Jesse.
chess studies.
I wasn't trying to say that it doesn't work. I'm trying to say for some people it would work and some people it wouldn't.
Okay.
That's really what I'm trying to say. Some people, great, and they can get better, and not only get better, but keep getting better. Right? Like, they make 1800, you're like, that's amazing. Somebody got to 1800 just playing Blitz without studying the classics. No, they can keep going. They can get 2000, 2200, some people.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of other people can't. And I would guess that the number of people who can get, you know, super strong and super close to their potential, let's say, by playing Blitz, I would guess it's like 10% or less of people who are sort of like built that way.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of them, but I think a lot of like real chess prodigies are built that way. So I think if you are somebody who has that kind of 27, 2800 potential, I think you'll find that the incidence is higher than 10%, that they get really good by just playing tons of games. So I think it is viable, but I think for some people it would work and some it wouldn't. And that's what I think about a lot of other things you can do in chess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all about the balance.